What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 43 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Wednesday, January 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Zach Malama. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the NBA as the New York Knicks took down the Brooklyn Nets at Barclays Center last night. A 99-95 victory for the Knicks to move to 29-16 on the year. Brooklyn falls to 14-30 near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And this game overall, credit to the Brooklyn Nets down the stretch as they held the Knicks to just 15 points in the fourth quarter. And the Knicks found a way with their star players to really step up when it mattered most. And down the stretch, they really stood strong. Guys like Jalen Brunson, as well as Karl Anthony Towns in this one. Cat had a monster game, 25 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists, along with 3 steals, 2 blocks. He shot 11 of 18 from the field. Jalen Brunson had a very quiet day until about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and he realized that it was his time to step up. Had 8 of the last 10 for the Knicks to finish with 17 points and just 4 assists in this one. Only shot 7 of 18, but when it mattered most, Jalen Brunson came up really, really strong. And like I said, 8 of the last 10 for the Knicks to win this one against their crosstown rival. And Brooklyn gave them a good fight. Credit to the Brooklyn Nets who've struggled recently and just trying to figure some stuff out, and probably going to trade some of their top players for some great draft capital. Guys like Cam Johnson are on the radar right now. And obviously, the question is what is going to happen before that February 6th NBA trade deadline. But when you look at the Knicks in terms of that deadline, they really need to make a move, in my opinion. They just don't have enough coming off the bench. Statistically, the worst team in the NBA in terms of bench points, and they just don't get enough off the bench. They rely so heavily on those starters, and why would they go towards their bench when they have a starting lineup like that? It makes sense. However, injuries do happen. And when the Knicks have a guy like Cat who cannot play every single game, really injured in a game here or there, they need to rely on guys off the bench. I agree that Precious Achiuwa has been really strong so far, especially since coming back from injury. Plus the fact that Mitchell Robinson has been out month after month after month, and the Knicks continue to wait for him to get back from injury. But Precious Achiuwa has been solid. Then you look at Jericho Sims as well. I feel like they can move a couple guys, whether it's Robinson and Sims, and probably not going to move a guy like Achiuwa. I would say more so a Robinson and a Sims to maybe get a stronger backup center. Precious Achiuwa has been really strong, like I said, but you can also play 2 bigs down low and give guys like OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges a bit of a breather. They also just need a little bit more scoring. Deuce McBride's a really strong shooter off the bench, has been a little inconsistent, a little shaky here and there, but gives you a good enough amount of points that you're like, all right, great, put him in for a couple minutes off the bench. Then you have a guy like Campaign who comes in behind Jalen Brunson, backup point guard and a veteran presence off the bench, but not a guy that you can really rely on when it comes to scoring. Then the next couple of guys you don't really rely on too much. Landry Shamet comes in more so for defense. That's really it for the New York Knicks off the bench. They got to get a guy who comes in, whether it's a veteran presence that they trade for or just another scorer that they could take some relief off of some of those other guys on the bench, and even take some relief off the starters who go in and play 35 plus minutes every single night. If they're staying healthy, that's really positive for the Knicks, but that's not always going to happen, like I said. So they need to get some more pieces off the bench, whether it's through a trade and trading a guy like Mitchell Robinson along with a guy like Jericho Sims. We'll see what happens, but they need to make a move desperately, in my mind, because they are just not on the level of a Cleveland Cavaliers team or a Boston Celtics team at the top of the Eastern Conference. They're just not close to them because those two teams have guy after guy after guy that they can rely on off the bench. The Knicks just do not have that, and that's really going to be the deal breaker for the New York Knicks when it comes to a playoff series. They're going to need to rely on guys off the bench, especially if they go up against those top teams in the Eastern Conference. But the Knicks grab a win in this one, 99-95. They take down the Brooklyn Nets at Barclays Center, and we look closer to that February 6th NBA trade deadline. Will the Knicks make any moves? We'll obviously keep track of that as the weeks go on. But let's move things to the NFL, as the New York Jets, it looks like, have found their guy. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn has made it known he's planning on taking the Jets head coaching job. That one per Josina Anderson earlier this morning. And Aaron Glenn, a guy who was drafted by the Jets just over 30 years ago, looks like he's coming back and will be the next head coach of the New York Jets. It looks like Lance Newmark will come in as the general manager as well. Obviously, an assistant GM right now in Washington, and has done a great job of really building that franchise. And Dan Quinn, obviously their head coach there, has really looked up to a guy like Lance Newmark, who's helped out and really has built a strong team in Washington as the assistant GM. He's going to come in most likely as the general manager, and I think this is a good move for the New York Jets. I asked for a defensive mind, a defensive head coach when this process started. Doesn't look like the Jets really know who their quarterback is going to be. That decision going to come down to a guy like Aaron Glenn, as well as the GM in Lance Newmark. If it is him, that's going to be a big question mark, and the first question that they're most likely going to have to answer in their introductory press conference at MetLife Stadium. Who's going to be the quarterback? Will it be Aaron Rodgers? Will it be Tyrod Taylor? Will they go younger? Will they go to the draft? What will happen for this New York Jets team? So we'll see what happens with New York, but they have finally found their guy, and obviously I'm very happy about this one as a Jets fan. Aaron Glenn, a guy that was near the top of my list in terms of defensive mind and a motivator, and really needs to get these guys back to playing strong football. And a lot of guys that they're going to lose, but also some young players that they're really trying to keep. And I feel like a guy like Aaron Glenn can really help those guys out and really make it a strong team once again, and really have some pride of being a New York Jet once again. So this one's a big deal for the New York Jets. They get their guy, it seems, and Aaron Glenn just moments away from taking the Jets head coaching job, and that's a big deal for the New York Jets. Let's finish things off today with a college basketball preview and a bit of a update from yesterday's games, as it was a strong output for the Tennessee Volunteers, who held the Mississippi State Bulldogs to just 16 points at halftime. It was a 34-16 lead for Tennessee into the halftime locker room. Credit to Mississippi State, put up some shots and got some shots to fall in the second half. Only a 12-point victory for Tennessee in the end, 68-56, but they handled this one. And number 6 Tennessee, against number 14 Mississippi State, and Tennessee handles things on their home floor. Big upset in the Big Ten as Ohio State took down number 11 Purdue, snapped a streak of 26 games at the Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. Purdue had that long winning streak, continued to find ways to win games at Mackey, but Ohio State says, yeah, not today and not anymore. They moved to 11-8 on the season, and Purdue drops their second game in the Big Ten. A big-time upset, and one that's probably going to knock Purdue way down in this top 25 rankings. UConn survives an 80-78 win in overtime against Butler. And I just don't know what's going on with UConn. They almost avoid their second straight home loss. And they almost look like this is just a work in progress type of team. And they just need to figure things out. Obviously, a lot of new players and some guys that are just lacking in experience. And yes, they have some guys from that national championship team last year, starters from that national championship team. but just feels like they don't have enough right now and enough experience from those other guys who are stepping in to really step up and be the leaders in this group. It's just a little bit off right now for Danny Hurley's guys, but hey, they found a way to win, even if it was on their home floor against an 8-11 Butler team. They do find a way to win this one. An upset in the SEC and a couple of upsets overall. Just quickly touching up on them. Texas takes down Missouri. That one expected, as Texas really looking to bounce back and grab some wins, especially in SEC play. They're 13-6 on the year, and they take down number 22 Mizzou. Tough place to play down in Austin, and Mizzou's still a very strong team in the SEC, in my opinion. Arizona State takes down West Virginia, a shocker in Morgantown. But that's what happens when you only shoot 20% or so from the field like West Virginia did. Only 57 points they put up in this one and came out sleeping at the beginning. Not going to win too many games in college basketball playing that sort of way. So West Virginia goes down. And then the final game I'll talk about, Louisville absolutely hands it to SMU, a game that was pretty close when it came to the spread. Louisville said, no, we're the better team here, and completely destroyed the Mustangs down in Dallas. And I think when you look at Louisville right now, they are clearly, in my mind, the second best team in the ACC behind Duke and have a clear chance of being a tournament team right now. They're 8-1 in ACC play. Their one loss came to the Duke Blue Devils. So that's a really big team to watch out for this year, and a team that could pull off some shockers, in my opinion. They really have done a great job in this offseason. Pat Kelsey has, coming in from the College of Charleston and completely transforming this Louisville program into something to really be proud of right now. And Louisville fans got to be happy they're finally back to where they were all those years ago. And it's been like 4 or 5 years since we really saw a strong Louisville team. They have really stepped it up, and a Louisville team this good, you got to go all the way back towards the Rick Pitino days. It's really a big time to be a Louisville fan, and they're looking great down in the ACC. So a lot to look for from last night's games into tonight. Houston taking on Utah should be a blowout there. Florida has a tough test taking on South Carolina, that one in Columbia on the road. Then you have number 12 Kansas, who has to travel to Fort Worth to take on TCU, and that one a tough game for Kansas going on the road. The final couple of games, Xavier is going to the Garden to take on St. John's, who sit at number 20 right now. Going to be without Davon Smith. The Johnnies are for that one. But then you look at the final game of the night and the final game of the ranked teams for the night, and a double ranking here and a great game down in the SEC in Oxford. It's going to be the number 16 ranked Ole Miss Rebels taking on the 13 ranked Texas A&M Aggies. That one down in Oxford, like I said, and that one should be a great one later. Ole Miss coming in as 3.5-point favorites for that game. Bit of an interesting one, as Texas A&M, a tough team, and yes, they've got a couple losses and really gone a bit downhill after a really hot start, but they are a wagon in the SEC. They are a strong team to go up against, and I think it could be a little bit difficult for Ole Miss. I think it should be a very close game in the end, but don't count out the Aggies of Texas A&M. Very talented team, and obviously getting their guy in Wade Taylor back last week. Now they get him for this game down in Oxford. So that should be a great game. Should be some great college basketball all throughout tonight. Make sure you tune into all of those games later tonight as we roll on, and just under 8 weeks away from the start of March Madness in college basketball. But that'll do it for episode 43 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.